The judge froze when he saw me walk through those courtroom doors. His gavel hung suspended in midair, and for a moment, the entire room fell silent. I wasn't supposed to be there. According to my children, I was supposed to be dying in a hospital bed, too weak to fight, too broken to know what they were doing behind my back. But there I stood, clutching a manila envelope that would change everything.
The judge froze when he saw me walk through those courtroom doors. His gavel hung suspended in midair, and for a moment, the entire room fell silent. I wasn't supposed to be there. According to my children, I was supposed to be dying in a hospital bed, too weak to fight, too broken to know what they were doing behind my back. But there I stood, in my best navy dress, the one Harold bought me for our 40th anniversary, clutching a manila envelope that would change everything. "Your Honor," my son Michael's lawyer stammered, "we weren't expecting—" "Neither was I," Judge Harrison interrupted, his eyes never leaving mine. "Mrs. Eleanor Chen, I presume? Please, approach the bench." My legs trembled as I walked forward, past my children who sat frozen in their seats. Michael wouldn't meet my eyes. Sarah stared at me like she'd seen a ghost. And my youngest, Emma, she was crying. Her hand pressed against her stomach in that protective way I recognized all too well. She's pregnant, I thought. My baby girl is having a baby. And she didn't even tell me. 6 months earlier, my life had been simple. Every morning at 5:30 a.m., I'd wake up in the same bed I'd shared with Harold for 43 years. The left side still felt cold, even after 2 years without him. I'd make my coffee in the chipped blue mug Emma made in her high school pottery class, the one with "World's Best Mom" painted in lopsided letters. My days followed a routine: tend to Harold's roses in the backyard, volunteer at the library on Tuesdays and Thursdays, lunch with my friend Mei Lin on Wednesdays. Simple, predictable, lonely, but manageable. The house wasn't much to look at from the outside, a modest 2-story in San Francisco's Sunset District that Harold and I bought in 1978 for $65,000. The paint was peeling, the porch steps creaked, and the kitchen hadn't been updated since the Clinton administration. But it was home. It held our memories. Emma's first steps in the living room, Michael's high school graduation party in the backyard, Sarah's wedding reception that spilled onto the street because we invited the whole neighborhood. I kept Harold's study exactly as he left it. His reading glasses still sat on the desk, marking his place in a book about ancient Chinese history. Sometimes I'd sit in his leather chair and talk to him, telling him about the children, about my day, about how much I missed his terrible jokes. "The children don't visit much anymore," I'd whisper to his photograph. "Michael says he's busy with work." Sarah, "Well, you know how she is with that husband of hers. And Emma hasn't returned my calls in 3 weeks." What I didn't know was that my children were very busy, indeed busy planning to take everything Harold and I had built together. It started with a dizzy spell at the grocery store. One moment, I was reaching for Harold's favorite brand of soy sauce. The next, I was on the floor, surrounded by concerned faces. The ambulance ride was a blur. The diagnosis was not severe anemia, exhaustion, and a heart arrhythmia that required immediate treatment. "We need to contact your family," the nurse said gently. Within hours, all 3 of my children appeared, the first time they'd been in the same room in over a year. I should have been suspicious then. Michael flew in from Seattle. Sarah drove down from Sacramento. Even Emma, who'd been too busy to return my calls, suddenly materialized at my bedside. "Mom, you gave us such a scare," Sarah cooed, holding my hand with unfamiliar tenderness. But it was what I overheard later that night, when they thought I was sleeping, that shattered my heart. "The house alone is worth at least $2.8 million in this market," Michael whispered. "If we can get power of attorney while she's weak." "Already on it," Sarah interrupted. "Tom knows a lawyer who can fast-track the paperwork. We just need her to sign." "What about the accounts?" Emma's voice was smaller, uncertain. "What accounts?" Michael asked sharply. "Dad mentioned something once. About investments. Said Mom didn't know about all of them." "Well, she doesn't need to know now either," Sarah said. "The house is enough. We split it 3 ways. That's nearly $1 million each. Enough to solve all our problems. All our problems. Is that what I had become? A problem to be solved? A bank account to be emptied? I kept my eyes closed, my breathing steady, while my heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. These were my babies. I had given up my career as a teacher to raise them. I had spent sleepless nights nursing their fevers, cheering at their games, crying at their graduations. And now they stood around my hospital bed, planning to rob me while I was too sick to fight back. But what I found next changed everything. The next morning, I asked the nurse to bring me my purse. "I need my reading glasses," I lied. What I really needed was Harold's old business card holder, the leather one I'd carried since his death, unable to let go of this small piece of him. Behind his cards, folded into a tiny square, was a note he'd written just weeks before his heart attack. "My dearest Eleanor, if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and you're going through my things. I know you. You're probably talking to my picture right now, aren't you? There's something I never told you, not because I didn't trust you, but because I wanted to surprise you on our 50th anniversary. I've been building something for us, for our future. Look in my study, behind the Chinese history section. The book about the Tang Dynasty is hollow. Everything you need is inside. All my love, Harold." My hands trembled. How had I carried this note for 2 years without knowing? That afternoon, I convinced the doctors I was feeling better. "I need to go home for just a few hours," I pleaded, "to water my husband's roses. They'll die without me." The taxi driver helped me up the porch steps. Inside, the house felt different, violated somehow. There were papers on the kitchen table that hadn't been there before. Legal documents with post-it notes marking where I should sign. A power of attorney form. A quitclaim deed. All prepared and waiting for my signature. I ignored them and went straight to Harold's study. The Tang Dynasty book was exactly where he said it would be. Inside the hollow compartment were documents that made my knees weak. Investment accounts I never knew existed. Patents for software Harold had developed in the early days of Silicon Valley. Stock certificates for companies that had started in our garage, companies now worth billions. And a will, properly notarized and witnessed, that told a very different story than the simple one filed after his death. The lawyer's face went pale when he saw what I'd found the next day. "Mrs. Chen," Attorney David Park said slowly, reviewing the documents, "do you understand what you have here? Your husband. He was one of the original investors in 3 major tech companies. These patents alone are worth. I need to make some calls, but we're talking about substantial wealth. Potentially $2.7 billion in assets. Billion? With a B? Why didn't he tell me?" I whispered. "According to these notes, he was planning to. He wanted to surprise you. He also wanted to make sure the money went to good causes. There's an entire trust structure here for charitable giving, with you as the sole trustee. And this will, it's ironclad. Everything goes to you, with specific provisions that the children only inherit if they've shown consistent care and concern for their mother's well-being." I thought about my children circling my hospital bed like vultures, about their plans to take my home, about 30 years of sacrifice reduced to a real estate transaction. "Mr. Park," I said quietly, "I need your help." I returned to the hospital that evening, playing the part of the weak, confused old woman my children expected. They were all there, waiting with their documents and fake smiles. "Mom, we've been so worried," Michael said, pulling out the papers. "The doctors say you need full-time care. We found a nice facility." "Very nice," Sarah added quickly. "With gardens and everything, you'll love it. But first, we need to handle some paperwork," Michael continued smoothly, "just to make sure your affairs are in order. Power of attorney, so we can pay your bills. And it might be time to think about selling the house. It's too big for you anyway." I looked at each of my children in turn. Michael, my firstborn, who I'd worked double shifts to put through business school. Sarah, who I'd supported through her divorce even when it meant emptying my savings. Emma, my baby, who still had my handmade quilts in her apartment. "Where would I live?" I asked weakly. "The facility has everything you need," Sarah said, not meeting my eyes. "And my things? Harold's roses?" "Mom, you have to be practical," Michael said impatiently. "The house is worth a fortune now. That money could pay for the best care. The best care? I sat up straighter. Like the care you've shown me these past 2 years? How many times have you visited, Michael? 3? 4? Mom, I live in Seattle. And you, Sarah? You live 90 minutes away. When was the last time you called just to chat? Not because you needed money or a babysitter, but just to hear my voice? That's not fair. And Emma. I turned to my youngest, who was shrinking in her chair. 10 weeks. That's how long it's been since you returned my calls. I know because I count. Every single day. The room fell silent. But now you're all here, I continued, my voice growing stronger. Now that you think I'm dying, now that there's money to be made, tell me, what kind of facility costs $2.8 million? Because that's what you think my house is worth, isn't it? Michael's face went white. How did you? I wasn't asleep last night. I heard every word, every calculation, every plan to rob your mother while she lay sick in a hospital bed. My daughter's next words shattered me. You were never supposed to hear that, Emma whispered, tears streaming down her face. We didn't mean. We're just so desperate, Mom. I'm pregnant, and David lost his job, and we're about to lose our apartment. Michael's company is failing. Sarah's husband has gambling debts. We didn't know what else to do. So you decided to steal from me, to throw me in a home and take everything your father and I built? It's not stealing, Sarah protested. We're your children. It would come to us eventually anyway. Would it? I pulled out my phone and showed them the email from Attorney Park. Because, according to your father's real will, the one you don't know about inheritance comes with conditions. Conditions you've all failed to meet. What are you talking about? Michael demanded. Your father was a very smart man. Smarter than any of us knew. And he made sure his fortune, yes, fortune would only go to children who showed consistent care and concern for me. Tell me, how do you think you measure up? Which brings us back to that courtroom, where my children had filed for conservatorship, claiming I was mentally incompetent and unable to manage my affairs. They'd hired expensive lawyers. They'd gotten doctors to testify about my confusion and weakness. They'd even submitted the power of attorney forms with forged signatures they claimed I'd made. But they didn't expect me to walk through those doors with Harold's real will and a team of forensic accountants who'd spent 3 weeks documenting exactly how much my husband had hidden away for our future. Your Honor, Attorney Park began. We have evidence that the petitioners have not only attempted to defraud Mrs. Chen, but have conspired to forge documents and file false statements with this court. The evidence was overwhelming. Security footage from the hospital showing Sarah practicing my signature, text messages between the siblings planning their deception, bank records showing Michael had already tried to access my accounts using the forged POA. But it was Judge Harrison himself who delivered the most shocking revelation. Before we proceed, he said, looking directly at me, I need to disclose something. 35 years ago, a young teacher named Eleanor Chen tutored my daughter for free when my family couldn't afford help. She spent every Saturday for 6 months making sure my Lisa could pass her math classes and graduate. Mrs. Chen refused any payment, saying knowledge should never be limited by money. He turned to my children. That woman saved my daughter's future, and now you stand before me, trying to steal hers? Hidden for 20 years, this connection would prove to be poetic justice. The judge's ruling was swift and severe. The conservatorship was denied. The forged documents were referred to the district attorney for criminal prosecution, and the attempted theft was documented in permanent court records that would follow my children forever. But it was what happened next that truly changed everything. Emma stood up, her hand still pressed to her stomach. Mom, she said, her voice breaking, I'm so sorry. I'm having a baby, and I became so scared about money that I forgot what really matters. You matter. Can you ever forgive me? I looked at my youngest daughter, really looked at her. I saw the fear in her eyes, the desperation that had driven her to betray me. But I also saw the little girl who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, who made me pottery with crooked letters, who once said I was her hero. Come here, I said, opening my arms. Emma collapsed against me, sobbing. Over her shoulder, I saw Michael storm out of the courtroom, Sarah following close behind. They'd made their choice. But Emma, perhaps there was still hope for Emma. 6 months later, I sat in Harold's study now, transformed into a bright office where I managed the Chen Family Foundation. The 2.7 billion fortune we never knew we had was being put to use. Scholarships for underprivileged students, funding for elder care programs, support for families in crisis. Emma visited every week now, her belly growing rounder with each visit. She'd left her husband, turned out he was the one pushing her to steal from me. She was living in our garage apartment, helping me with the foundation while preparing for motherhood. "I'm thinking of naming her Eleanor," she said one afternoon, rubbing her stomach. "If it's a girl, don't burden her with my mistakes," I said gently. "Your mistakes? Mom, you loved us unconditionally for decades. We were the ones who failed you." Michael and Sarah had tried to contest the will, of course. But Harold's lawyers had been thorough. The more they fought, the less they would ever receive. Sarah's husband left her when the money didn't materialize. Michael's business failed without the influx of cash he'd counted on. I heard from Malin that they blamed me for their misfortunes, but I was done carrying their weight. Instead, I built a new family. The foundation staff became my daily companions. The scholarship recipients sent me letters and visited during holidays. Emma and I grew closer than we'd ever been, bonding over pregnancy books and baby preparations. And Harold's roses? They bloomed more beautifully than ever, as if he was watching over us, approving of how his secret fortune was being used. The chipped blue mug still sits on my kitchen counter, but now it's joined by new ones, gifts from Emma, from the students I've helped, from the chosen family I've built. I've learned that blood doesn't always mean loyalty, and that sometimes the greatest gift you can give your children is the knowledge that actions have consequences. Harold knew something I didn't all those years ago. In his final letter, which Attorney Park gave me after the trial, he wrote, "My dearest Eleanor, if you're reading this, then you've discovered my secret. I'm sorry I kept it from you, but I wanted to protect you from what money does to families. I've seen it too many times, fortunes that divide rather than unite. So I waited, hoping our children would grow into people worthy of such responsibility. If they haven't, if they've shown you anything less than the love and respect you deserve, then use this money to build the family you should have had. Blood makes you related, but loyalty makes you family. Forever yours, Harold." He was right, as usual. To those watching who've experienced family betrayal, who've been used and discarded by those who should love you most, know this: you are not alone. Your worth isn't measured by how others treat you, but by how you choose to move forward. Sometimes the family we choose is stronger than the family we're born into. What would you have done in my place? Have you experienced family betrayal that changed your life? Comment below and tell me which city you're watching from. And remember, just because someone